So let's see.
We can probably go ahead and get started. As is the custom, I have way too much content, so...
97 slides, everyone. 97 slides.
So, for those that don't know me, I am Kevin Deerdorf. I run a blog called Mazer Patrol and wrote a book called Kaiju for Hipsters, so 101 alternative giant monster movies.
Yep.
And my esteemed co-host.
Yeah, esteemed. Hi, Mike Dent, sometimes known as Mock Dent. I'm known these days for being the main force behind the YouTube channel Vintage Henshin. I was also in the English dub for Ultraman Z as the voice of the storage AI. So, but yeah, that's me. I've been summoned to my first ever G-Fest, so this has been pretty interesting. Yeah, we're here to talk about a little bit of a late night action, but not the kind you're thinking. Oh, yes.
So basically, what we want to talk about is for different audiences, different types of shows air at different times of day. And I think everybody's kind of aware of this concept that you have your primetime television, which is kind of for families and in general audiences, versus your, weekend morning cartoons, which are more for kids. And then you have your late night shows that are basically for adult, mature audiences. And
past the watershed and all that, essentially.
Yeah.
It's the difference between being okay, let's just have fun on CBeebies, and then after 9 o'clock, someone just gets shivved right in the open and wire in the blood.
And as Tokusatsu fans, we tend to think mostly in terms of children's programs, and honestly, those originally, if you go back to the 70s, were mostly in prime time. But over time, our big three franchises have moved to being morning shows. So basically, stuff that would have previously aired in the evening, more for families, is moved more towards the morning, more for children. And that leaves the question of, how much of these shows might have changed thematically over the years. If things are more for kids, you might not get characters smoking cigarettes. You might not get visible blood on screen. As many character deaths. And also as a nature of the time blocks, you have less time for commercials, which means you get more product placement within the shows themselves. So if you notice, how many times the characters have to explicitly play with their transformation devices on screen in some of these shows, part of that is just due to the time slots that they're in.
Right.
So if Tokusatsu is generally moving towards a more kid-friendly audience, what does that leave for adult fans?
Into the darkness.
So we can compare and contrast this with what happened with anime in the 90s, basically. That it used to be that all anime was kind of aimed at basically a kid-friendly audience, but more mature fans started to latch onto things in the late 70s and 1980s, and eventually we start getting productions that are made for adults. And what you'll find is, you have situations, and this really started with Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I hate to say everything started with Neon Genesis Evangelion, but sometimes it's true.
One person's just going to come smashing through the wall. I was right.
The show aired in prime time originally, but when it re-aired at midnight, it had better success with the ratings. And so networks were like, hey, there's an audience that's watching this stuff late at night. We should make shows for late night audiences. And now the biggest shows on TV are actually in this late night slot. So an example is Demon Slayer, which is the most popular anime in the world right now, and it airs at 11:30 p.m. So, Tokusatsu kind of does the similar thing. So you have these shows that are for more mature audiences, and they can contain, violence or horror or nudity, substance use, darker tones, things that aren't part of the staple of the toy commercials that you see early on Sunday morning. And on top of that, because they're...
Oh, thank you.
They're so excited about nudity.
They're so excited about the mention of nudity and violence. I mean,
yeah. I know I am.
There it is.
So yeah, usually these shows are kind of like lower budget compared to the 50 episode, new Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, but sometimes you get ones that are quite expensive, and examples of that are Daimajin or Garo that we're going to get to. Kind of the peak time period was 2007 for these productions for reasons that we'll get into, but we'll just kind of wander through the history of some of these shows as we go through our panel today. So a quick thumbnail guide. People will sometimes wonder, like, hey, can we see this? Is this fan sub? So I just made little flags, one that says if it's only available in Japanese, one that says if there's fan subs available, and one that says if it's something that's legally available, even if it might be out of print.
And every once in a while, if like, say, one of us mentions archaeology, it means piracy.
So
off to the races.
Yeah, so when talking about Midnight Tokusatsu, a lot of people say, "Oh, this is a recent thing," but in fact, it's been around for quite a while, and it goes back to this person, Eiji Tsuburaya, who has something to do with Tokusatsu.
Oh yeah, you're the little obscure guy, I mean, didn't really do a whole lot. He's just there in the room, I guess.
Yeah, so he actually supervised this late night horror series, Horror Theater Unbalance, and it was originally intended to air in prime time in the 60s, but they could not find a sponsor for it because it was weird and violent and had some very strange themes in it, and as a result, it wound up sitting on a shelf for 3 years until 1973 when it finally aired at 11:15 and this is a neat one. Directors include Seijin Suzuki and Toshia Fujita. Suzuki from Branded to Kill, or Fujita for Lady Snowblood. And because Suzuki has a big fan base, the first episode of this has been fan subbed. It is a wild, crazy, I don't know what I expected going in, but I was not expecting people juggling corpses. It's I would like.
It's a good time.
Yeah, like to see some of these old Tsuburaya shows that aren't related to Ultraman get some more love. But funny enough, this is not actually the only show that wound up in this exact situation, because Jekyll and Hyde was another tokusatsu. This isn't Tsuburaya. This was made by Toho, but this also wound up on a shelf for between 1969 and 1973 because it has a lot of sexual content that they were not able to find a sponsor for in prime time. So this has direction by Hideo Gosha, stars Tetsuro Tamba, and Masaru Sato did the music. So these are all names that people know. And it's also, fun fact, the first acting role for Daisuke Ban, aka Kikaida.
And then I feel like, Tetsuro Tamba, that would have been right around the time of GMN 70, closer to GMN 75. Oh, no, that would have been a couple years after. I think it's in the name. Oh, no, Key Hunter would have been around that time.
Yeah. Although, this is filmed, and then he would have looked much older in the 70s.
it's like, oh, no, it's current, I swear. Just really good aging cream.
So we didn't see a whole lot of midnight shows for a while after that, until we got to the 1980s, and this is when we kind of start to get off to the races, and this is with this Japanese horror boom that really started in the mid 80s. First you had a Tsuburaya animation series called Fear at 3 a.m., which was kind of like a kamishibai, like a slideshow kind of thing, but that was quite popular, and that inspired a lot of the TV networks to start looking into their own horror anthologies. So one of the first ones was Strange Occurrences that we have our slide for here, and it was one of the early directing gigs for Masayuki Ochiai, who did Infection, or George Ida, who did Rasen. And this kind of evolved into Tales of the Unusual, which is the huge thing that we basically see as this kicked off Japanese horror in the late 80s and early 90s, and led to things like The Ring and all of the subsequent copycats.
God.
So as we mentioned, we wound up at this point getting into more late night productions, and an example of one of them is Warashi, which is a ninja drama, and this is from Tsuburaya Eizo, and Tsuburaya Eizo we'll see all over this time slot.
Oh yeah.
So this is Akira Tsuburaya's company. So he's a son of aged Tsuburaya, and he has a company that's also called Tsuburaya, and this confuses people. But they're not actually related to each other.
Yeah, and then also Akira Tsuburaya is famous not for like the output of that, but then there's also a lot of anime that he supervised, which it's interesting. We'll say that.
He was a fiscally conservative, let's put it that way.
Okay, and that's still being very polite.
Yeah. But he attracted a lot of talent, including Chiaki Konaka, who went on to write Ultraman Gaia, worked on this show, and all three of the directors who worked on this immediately turned around and started working on Gridman for Tsuburaya Productions.
Just literally turn to the left. Oh, hey, baby Don Don. So,
all right, Nighthead. This is.
Oh boy, I've been waiting for this. Okay, all right, folks. Picture the early '90s, and at this point, you've got like a lot of procedural dramas and stuff like that in America. That like you have your NYPD Blue, you have your ER, you also have stuff like the X-Files. Well, believe it or not, a lot of that stuff popular in Japan as well. And so essentially with the X-Files, they're like, okay, we have this crazy American show. What can we do to rival it? And so they decide to create a show with the greatest name ever, Nighthead. And the premise of it is, and I'm going to do my dark narrator voice for it basically. Humankind can only use 10% of its brain. To unlock the remaining 90% is a phenomenon known simply as Nighthead. So basically, you have a show which has two attractive young men who are on the run and misunderstood their psychic powers, lots of angst. It has the theme song from Gamera Guardian of the Universe because it was originally written for the show. And believe it or not, it spawned a whole franchise. I mean, we can probably go to the next slide there. This is the Nighthead franchise. It's not even including spin-offs. There's a Nighthead video game, a Nighthead novel, a Nighthead manga, a Nighthead reimagined anime called Nighthead Genesis, which is actually available in the States. There's also a reimagining called Nighthead 2041, which goes full cyberpunk, which is actually pretty good. And it's like, there's just so much. And there's also the spin-off, Sci-Fi Harry, which you have to like go into a dumpster and pray that you find it because it's just that on the edge of obscure, which revolves around the concept of a young man in America, written by someone who has not lived in America, who has psychic powers that whenever he uses it, someone in the immediate vicinity dies. So it's like you got all this intrigue, all this crazy stuff, and again, it's just America from like the point of the stereotype of jocks and hot dogs, basically. So yeah, and Nighthead, unfortunately, the only things that are available are Genesis. I believe it was Media Blasters that put it out, or was
yes, that was.
Yeah, Media Blasters put that out. But then there's 2041, which is available on Crunchyroll, and I highly recommend it. A lot of people slept on it because it was 3D animation, but it gets points from me because they actually found a way to work in actual conspiracy magazine Moo as a plot point. But then also there's a Nighthead 2.5D stage show, apparently, which I was not aware of that. So yeah, there's just a lot of it out there, and it's just right on the fringe. But I highly recommend tracking it down. It's also kind of funny because it's a little bit of the precursor to what we know now is like the Odagiri effect with Kamen Rider. Because they basically said, hey, let's incorporate elements from American television and just swing it on its head. So, and that's basically what we got with Kuga, essentially. Just a lot of subtext with mixing in elements of procedural American dramas and lots of horror and violence. Yeah, also just as gay, if not more. So, then we get to Sailor Fight. Oh, this is a fun one.
Yeah, so basically there's a TV block that was showing old Tokusatsu shows, reruns, and it became very popular because it would show these obscure shows that nobody had seen and weren't available on VHS. And it became so popular that they're like, hey, we should have our own mascot, do our own original segments. And that's basically what Sailor Fighter, this character, came out of. And became quite popular and has things like, an official crossover with Gamera.
Yeah. Yeah, you had that, and then like the half of the premise is basically an evil scientist wanting an excuse to be an evil scientist, trying to like take over the world and failing every time. And then, surprising enough, the entire series of this is available on YouTube, along with the recent revival, because the director basically said, you know what, let's just put it all online. But there's still one whole film that has never seen the light of day, apart from like really like out there events.
All right, this is a weird one. Alice 6.
I mean, it's in the name.
Yeah.
It's
This was the Kanaka brothers in one of their early collaborations. You know, basically, and as you would expect from the Kanaka brothers, it's like, oh, Lovecraft mythology. And,
what a shocker! Kanaka doing like Cthulhu. I mean, who ended up working out into Digimon of all things years later.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's like about a group of girls who get trapped in an Alice in Wonderland type of, inspired universe. This one is actually all fan subbed on YouTube, despite the fact that it only aired in one area of TV in Japan.
There's another show that has a really weird situation like that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Speaking of which, good old Blackout. And if you want to talk about that one, but go on.
Yeah. I mean, this is very much a. So there was a show in America called The X-Files that was very popular.
You probably didn't hear of it. Probably didn't even hear about it. It was a fly-by-night.
Yeah, it was quite popular in Japan, and that inspired a whole lot of similar kinds of programs, including this one, which is about a guy cop and a lady cop who are investigating paranormal phenomena. This sounds familiar. But yeah, again, a lot of J-horror people that were working on it, and some people that would go on to do things in other Tokusatsu franchises, like Jiro Kaneko, who worked on Ultraman Max, or Shosuke Murakami, who did Train Man. So it's and this is one that it's available in Japanese. You said you found it on TikTok?
Yes. So we were doing a revision pass on the panel, and I'm like, I wonder if I could find any clips of stuff to put in, because we don't have time, because again, 97 slides. So we're just kind of going through it, and then all of a sudden, I look, there's Blackout. I'm like, what? There's a video source. Wait, what? It's on TikTok. Someone has basically clipped the entire series into 1 minute chunks, and they've put the entire series of Blackout on TikTok. So if you can track it down and look it up by katakana, you'll be able to see Blackout on TikTok. I don't think the producers anticipated that, but hey, second lease on life. Maybe it'll get used as a sound in somebody's video, and it'll be like the next viral meme. Moon Spiral, you poor misguided show.
Yeah, this is another Subaraya Productions joint, and this was basically a response to Nighthead as well as the X-Files. And this is a father and daughter that are teaming up against this nefarious organization called Moon Spiral that wants to do bad things. It's very much like the way that Shocker and Kamen Rider wants to do things, except
no transformations or anything like that. But the ending theme's a banger. At least it's a good song.
Yeah, I mean, this is billed as Ultra Q of the '90s, and I don't know if anyone would really call it that after watching it, but I do kind of enjoy it's quite gory. I think for a television production,
it tries very hard. From what I've seen. And surprisingly enough, this is another one that has turned up thanks to archaeology. Some brave soul managed to fan sub the entire series, and then wrote a whole essay about how much of an excruciating experience it was. But it was it's okay. I'm happy it's out there now.
But this was a collaboration between Subaraya Productions and VAP, and it was successful enough, I guess, despite it never got its second season or anything. But it led to the Heisei Ultra 7 movies getting made,
which is so good.
Yeah. So even things that don't turn out great can have good consequences.
And then, of course, we have Eko Eko Azarak, which is one of those granddaddy franchises as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Shinichi Koga manga, which is hugely influential manga in Japan. Like if you like Junji Ito stuff and you were to ask Junji Ito, like, hey, what did you grow up reading?
He will slam it on the table and then consume your soul. But yeah,
Yes.
but at least you'll have a copy of Eko Eko Azarak as a consolation.
Yeah, so Tsuburaya Eizo was making these Eko Eko Azarak movies, which proved popular enough that they went ahead and they made a TV series, and it has a different lead actress. It has Hinako Saiki, who would go on to play Sadako in Rasen, and her parents were played by Rumisa Kakibara and Jiro Dan, who were the main couple in Return of Ultraman.
So at least they get a happy ending in some universe, as opposed to their demise in the worst Christmas episode ever. But yeah, and Eko Eko Azarak is another one that has just gone on for a while. There's been remix upon remix in addition to the TV series. I think the most recent one was like 2017? Yeah. Something like that. Like, yeah, they always find an excuse to bring it back.
Mm-hmm. And it's a horror series about a teenage witch, basically.
Yeah. Sabrina, but with sex and violence. No, not really. Sure.
I can see a connection there.
There's more.
So we'll churn through a bunch of the Tsuburaya Eizo things. Targeted School, which is the same source material as the Nobuhiko Obayashi movie, School in the Crosshairs. This actually got a movie as well as a TV series, and is about kids at a school that have psychic powers being targeted by malicious people with psychic powers.
Those psychic power people they just don't like each other.
Yes. This has Mari Ijima on the music, from Macross.
For a little show called Macross, you might not have heard of it. No.
and Sadayuki Murai, who wrote Boogie Pop, and again Chiaki Konaka. We'll see so much Konaka.
At this point, if there was a drinking game, you would be like several glasses in and probably feeling sick. And then another cursed property.
Yeah.
If you ask diehard Shin Megami Tensei fans about this show, they will stare daggers at you and ask, why did you ruin their day? So, yeah, and I mean, it's another Tsuburaya Eizo joint, but it's just, the special effects were, the ideas were there, it was just a little ahead of its time.
It's Japanese television CGI circa 1997. Make of that what you will.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, Jack Frost looks okay at least, but his mouth kind of takes 5 minutes to move. So, it's like, wow.
This is another obscure one, but I think it just demonstrates a kind of very exploitation mindset that was going on at this time.
Oh, yeah.
There is, this is a series about an invisible girl, and because she's invisible, she can't be wearing clothes. So they got a porn star to play the main role. So she's just walking around naked for the entire show.
Which, surprisingly enough, not a weird sight on late night television.
Yeah. The standards and practices in Japan are quite different than they are in the States.
Yeah.
That was not a problem being broadcast.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll leave this one to you.
Okay, Rosetta the Masked Angel. I mean, there's really not much to say. I mean, it's, the father-daughter team. This was for a time, like, if you were a fan in the late 90s, you were going on about Rosetta the Masked Angel. And it did that thing which a lot of these other shows you'll see later on will do, where, like, they were trying to be like, oh, we're going to have clever nudity in the transformation sequence, but it's really, you just see the shoulders and the clavicle, which I think awoke some things in people that they weren't expecting. But basically, so you have that, and then you also have the fact that they actually had a legitimate wrestling run. They actually brought the costumes in. Well, I think it was like for All Japan Pro Wrestling. Yeah. And so you had Rosetta and her dad like as a tag team in the matches. You could find them on YouTube. It's pretty nuts. But another Tsuburaya Eizo joint, and Anne's actress from Ultra 7 is also in it as well as a supporting role.
All right, another video game adaptation that I had no idea existed until I was looking into this. There's apparently a series based on Athena, the character from Psycho Soldier who then wound up in the King of Fighters franchise.
Did it have the theme song though? Because if it didn't, then what's the point? No.
That's a good question. This is one I was not able to track down
Yeah.
any
Again, you have to go in a dumpster and you have to like roll a 6-sider and maybe you'll find it. So, and then we have Telomere, which is another one of those shows that, I mean, you can find it on VHS, but you also have to pay an exorbitant amount of money and sell your house in order to get it. Because there's literally like one listing for like the entire series. I think that's like $100,000, and it's been there for years. But basically, you have a trio of teenage girls with psychic powers. The theme song is cool. If you hear the name and it sounds familiar, it's because they made a reference to this in SSSS.Gridman. Also, another excuse for copious amounts of nudity. Very uncomfortable copious amounts of nudity because they were like, I think, like late teens at that point, like or they did Dawson's casting. But apparently, despite the low budget, TV Asahi, the TV network, was still impressed with the quality of it. So good for them, I guess. But yeah, again, good luck trying to get your hands on it. The first 2 episodes materialized once somewhere, and then that was it. And then good luck getting the rest of it.
Which I do think it's funny that because Subaru Productions had a popular show with girls with psychic powers. Of course, Subaru Eizo was like, hey, we can do that. Turned around and put out Gazer, which is about teenage girls with psychic powers and on the run from a shady government organization.
I feel like you gotta have like the bingo card at this point. It's like you'd be ready to go. It's like, okay, teenage girls, check. Fighting an evil organization, check. Psychic powers, check. Banger theme song, check. All right, there you go. That's it. You win. Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, Akira Tsuburaya, he's definitely a champion of something. Oh yeah, and then we got Voicelugger. Yeah, Shotaro Ishinomori's final project for this one, and it's like a who's who of voice actors at the time. But like a lot of big name voice actors. Shinsuke Kikuchi, who's the composer for Kamen Rider, Dragon Ball Z, worked on that with the soundtrack. Toru Hirayama directed it, the main mover and shaker for Toei's Henshin boom, basically. And it's just so much fun. And for a time, you could find the soundtrack on Spotify, and that was the closest you could probably get to getting it released. But it has been subbed. It's around somewhere, but yeah, the audience appreciated that one. Exactly. Yeah, it'll pop up from time to time. Like maybe like ships passing in the night if your heart's in the right place. And someday, no. Exactly.
Think of it as like a weird last hurrah of the Henshin boom.
Oh yeah, or yeah, the last hurrah. Oh, Vanny Knights. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a weird one in terms of Vanny could be pronounced in a way that sounds similar to Bunny because this was Alice in Wonderland was popular and they wanted to do something with British culture and they're like, well, how about like Musketeers, but they're like bunny themed. And
I mean, suits are rad, and again, they do that whole clavicle transformation process thing. So yeah, so like it does look cool. The theme song is also pretty good. I have a metric, I judge these things. If the theme song is a banger, then it can survive. But yeah, it's just another show. It's another thing that's kind of on the fringe up there with like Rosetta. But either way, it's still pretty good. Did we mention Otasuke Girl at all? Because I feel like it's in the same wheelhouse.
I don't remember if that's in there or not.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Worst comes to worst, all you need to know, Otasuke Girl existed. Speaking of things that existed, but we'll never see.
Eiji Tsuburai's 100th birthday project. This is a collaboration between Tsuburaya Entertainment, aka Tsuburaya Eizo, and Toho. I mean, every still that I look at it looks neat. It had like Teruyoshi Nakano on special effects, and you just can't find it anywhere because it's so out of current.
And if you find it again, expect to pay was it like 6 digits and also your house? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's like a Star Wars pastiche like about the stormtroopers. So
yeah, and at the very least, like again, it got a second lease on life thanks to an Easter egg reference in 4S Gridman.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, they like Gridman over there too.
Everybody loves Gridman.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, this is another Toru Hirayama project. Invader girl Milli, and this is just the main character's a villain, and each episode she fights a different hero, and that's kind of a fun concept.
Well, yeah, and everything's a parody of like a classic Showa era type thing. So there's one dude who's literally just like a main body with like another main body on top. So like he'll like do like a swan dive and capture someone with a leg lock from like the other body, and so like the girl like Millie's just freaking is like, oh my god, you're so gross, you pervert. And also surprisingly enough, you can watch the entire series of this as well without subtitles. And then like every episode ends with her hanging out with Kamen Rider 2 at his snack bar cafe. He doles out advice of the week.
Yeah, lots of Tokusatsu actors coming in for roles.
Machiko Soga, Bandora and like G-Ranger, aka Rita Repulsa herself was even in it at one point. But then it also got a sequel. Yeah, they got the sequel and then like a 3-episode anime that I had not seen. I was surprised by that when we were going through it.
Yeah, it's weird sometimes the overlap between anime and Tokusatsu.
Yeah. Oh, Wecker. Okay, so imagine, if you will, I'm going to take you back again. We're going on another journey. We're going to paint an elaborate portrait. So imagine, if you will, it's the early 2000s, and someone's like, hey, so we've got these like superheroes, like these superheroines with various gimmicks and stuff like that. What if we just did that, but it's the Space Sheriff trilogy, and we file the serial numbers off? And that's what Wecker started out as. Hiroshi Watari, who plays Charivan, is even in it as a completely different character. And so basically you have this 3-episode series. It's pretty good. The suits are okay. It's a fun little show. There's like a clever little twist with like the storyline kind of like looping in on itself. But then it's like you've got that, and that happens. But then with I think it was popularity that resulted in it getting the sequel TV series, Wecker D02. And Wecker D02 seemed like pretty great, but you had like, I think it was like how many, like 8 girls at the same time or something like that?
It was a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so you have them all wearing like the future outfits with like, the corsets and like the small jackets and like the really, really short skirts and boots and the laser guns, and no one transforms. For some reason, they thought, let's just have a show with 8 girls on at the same time, all trying to do a fight choreography with these incredibly short skirts. I kind of liken it to another late night show. It's not Tokusatsu, but it was very popular at the time, Miniskirt Police. Which also I think that got a video game at one point too.
I would believe it.
Yeah, so yeah, it's that kind of stuff. It's just not great. But then they course corrected years later with Wecker Signa, which was another thing where they had even younger idols. They brought back Hiroshi Watari in a completely different character. They had a collaboration with Takara Tomy and made like new Microman figures based off of it. And it was largely successful, but then it kind of went off the rails. And the franchise still exists to this day, but now it's a vehicle for young idols, and it's all stage shows. And everyone basically wears time-traveling magical girl costumes. It's not great, but Wecker is just this interesting relic from this time. It starts as a direct-to-video thing, becomes a late-night TV series, becomes another late-night series, and then becomes stage shows. And now they're doing movies, apparently, that are even darker, more violent because reasons.
So for old anime fans, they might remember Steel Angel Kurumi as a popular franchise.
We're going to expose everyone immediately. It's like, like if you just like looked up and smiled, congratulations, you've been found.
Yeah, so it's a sitcom with a robot nurse basically, and this actually at the same time that the anime was coming out, there was also a live action version, and a fun thing is like this was actually licensed by ADV. They just never released it. So I am imagining
there were a couple shows like that, weren't there? Where the ADV just had like supposedly like ADV like licensed Lady Battle Cop. We still haven't found it.
They released that on VHS, but
there are okay, yeah. All right, we'll have okay. All right, well, I have a heading. I have to find a copy now. I just realized I'm slamming this. Your recording is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to be like adventurous. Yeah, so that's right. And then also, Toshihisa Arakawa from Deca Ranger and Kamen Kuga was the lead writer on it, which is just, it's wild.
Yeah. in addition to Toshiki Inoue and Hiroshi Yamaguchi, so it's just
Yeah, Toshiki Inoue being the writer for Jetman, as well as Mechanical Violator Hokkaider, everyone's favorite happy romp.
All right.
Oh, Sky High.
Hey, she looks familiar. Is she at this convention?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Sky High, a lot of people might know the movie, but it was a TV series first that then got a tie-in movie that then went back and had some more TV episodes. And it's Yumiko Shaku plays this Grim Reaper type of character that is helping out people who have had unnatural deaths come to terms with it. A lot of names that Godzilla fans might be familiar with, like Ryohei Kitamura and Shusuke Kaneko, directed episodes for this show.
And then Kitamura eventually got the movie, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Kitamura got the movie.
So at least the action sequences are going to be good.
So yeah, you can check out the movie because that was available on DVD from Media Blasters, and then also it's getting a sequel. It just came out last year. It's playing in New York later this month, so you can go see it.
All right, I have to go see this now immediately.
All right.
What's going on? So
this is a weird one because it was not originally a late night show. In fact, it was an early morning show. It was the first Ultraman show to move from being in prime time to being early in the morning, and it bombed in the ratings.
And they got shafted. I think the deal was originally like they were supposed to get a late night slot or primetime slot, but then it's like Gundam Seed was coming out, and then it got shifted at the last minute because they're like, did someone say Gundam? So yeah, and then you have that, and oh my gosh.
But then after its run, they're like, okay, well let's rerun it at 2:30 in the morning, and it did better in the ratings. So like really, this should have been a late night show or at least a primetime show, and it's such a shame that it did not.
Yeah,
well, but
it was the death knell for the big Ultra N project, which was an attempt to try and like shoot be like a shot in the arm for the Ultra series. It's like, let's just completely switch everything over and be like darker and invoke the spirit of the original, but go completely in new territory. And it since has become a fan favorite. It's now available on DVD and also available at shot-tv.com. What? Who said that? The ghost of advertising passed. No, but anyway.
That was not the only Tsuburaya late night thing in 2004, though, because believe it or not, Tsuburaya Entertainment produced Ultra Q Dark Fantasy, which they wound up working with Tsuburaya Productions for, and wound up actually fitting the bill to Tsuburaya Productions for, landing in a lawsuit.
Oh.
Winding in the destruction of Tsuburaya Entertainment, basically. And that's why when people are like, hey, why didn't Mill Creek release Ultra Q Dark Fantasy?
That's why.
So
anything that's like mired up as like a co-production or any sort of legal trouble, that's never coming out unless there's a miracle.
But I actually really do like the show. It had look at the directors: Shusuke Kaneko, Akio Jisoji, Takeshi Yagi, Norio Tsuruta, like lots of good people worked on this show.
It was another like kind of who's who basically of the time. Well, remember this. Well, this is like early 2000s Jusoju, so like lots of soft focus.
Yeah.
Lots of larger focus on the dreamlike imagery. So
Nothing is literal ever.
And the greatest title ever, Bloodhound, the Vampire Gigolo.
Yes. Yeah, I mean the Japanese title was Vampire Host, but I guess for English audiences they were like, no, we got to make this extra explicit.
There's one other show that also has a Gigolo incorporation in it, and I guess that was just all the rage.
Yeah. So this is a vampire show about a couple, a human woman and a vampire guy, and they go around Scooby-Doo investigating monsters. It's basically a riff on Trick, which was a really popular show on TV at the time, which was about.
Oh, that's a whole other franchise into itself.
It goes around debunking paranormal phenomena.
Yeah.
This one's available, and it has some cool people that worked on it. This one is not really a good show, but it's available on DVD here, so we can move right along to an awesome, amazing, fantastic show.
Hey!
The Great Horror Family is from the creator of The Grudge, Takashi Shimizu, and it's a sitcom about a family that moves into a grudge house. And as the show goes on, like at first there's ghosts that show up, and then there's yokai that show up, and then there's government men in black and aliens that show up, and zombies show up, and it just gets more and more chaotic as it goes along, and it's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, this is like early 2000s Takashi Shimizu before he went off the rails as well, so you know you're in for some good stuff.
He brought this. Watch it.
Good taste.
Really would recommend fans of Death Kappa, if you exist. You might be interested to see the Kappa costume that they used in this was later reused in Death Kappa.
Oh, Tomo Haraguchi, the unwritten or unsung hero of Tokusatsu, as far as I'm concerned. And then we get to Shibuya 15, the show that introduced the world to a babyface Mark Musashi. So basically imagine a JRPG, but like with half the acting ability. No. It's basically you have a virtual world with like 15-year-olds occupying it, all in various gangs. And there's like a Grim Reaper running around. And occasionally you'll have like a Tokusatsu cameo. So like the actor who played Shinji from Kamen Rider Yuki shows up as a priest in the first episode. And he gets horribly mangled. So it's... and also it's the debut of AAC Stunts, and if that name sounds familiar, they did work for Garo, they've done stuff for King of the Live, they did stuff for Dragonet, Akiba Ranger, Go Raigon, Kamen Rider the First. I feel like I should have like Copacabana playing in the background as I'm singing. It's like just have like this list just scrolling on and on. But yeah, AAC, like also they've done a lot of stuff with Keita Amamiya as well, because one of the founders basically was doing a lot of stuff with him as far back as like Zeram and Cyber Ninja, Mirai Ninja. So.
But yeah, like what we talk about when we talk about AAC stunts is just stuff that you would never expect to see in a television production.
Incredibly brutal, visceral choreography, but there's also like a sense of humor to it. Just really just over the top stuff, and like they were absolutely. I mean, they're still doing big stuff, but it's definitely like a different flavor from say like Japan Action Enterprise, who was like one of the mainstays at the time. And
so on that topic,
and for everyone who was wondering, including the people who hunted me down in the hallway and held a knife to my throat, Garo, it's the greatest thing ever.
Yes. So. When we said we're doing a Midnight Tokusatsu panel, the first question we've gotten universally from everybody is, so you're going to talk about Garo, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to do a Marvel panel and not mention Spider-Man. Like, yeah. Garo is simply amazing, wonderful, the best. If there's one show that you see that you haven't seen, this should be it.
And the best part is when, I think this was like when I became aware of the concept of the Midnight Tokusatsu drama, because it was billed as, and I quote, a hyper-action midnight drama. That's how the show was billed. And it's basically the unholy fusion of like, you have like Western fantasy with like Japanese mythology, where they're hunting down demons inside, like they're like the evil in people's hearts. So it's a nice little anthology show with like a loose running story arc. And you get these amazing character designs. Keita Amamiya's baby basically is this, and it's just him throwing out a sketch pad and just like going crazy, and that scene from The Wind Rises where the pages are just flying everywhere. And you have just amazing set pieces every episode that really push the level in terms of special effects. They're doing green screen, they're doing stop motion in some respects. It's all over the place, and it was also when right around the heyday. Or the I don't say the heyday, like the early days of like sort of the 2K wave fandom for Tokusatsu in the States. This is one of those shows that really got picked up and was like fan sub, and just people loved it immediately. Like we would used to play clips at panels, and just everyone would be singing the theme song. Because also you had Jam Project, the greatest mega band ever, also doing the theme song for it as well. And this is another one that, thankfully enough, yes, archaeology, you can find it. But the first 2 seasons were released by Kraken Releasing. Unfortunately, they're not of print. Exactly, you can't even find it, and you're like, why do I think that got removed too? It finally got removed. Yeah.
I think they lost the license. So.
They did, unfortunately. But and the best part about this is this is fueled by because Tohoku Shinsha produced it. But the best part is it's been kept alive by the great lifeblood that is pachinko.
Yes. So I mean, as we mentioned, it's continued. Like it was not just that first series; it's had multiple spin-offs with different incarnations of the main character. It's like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where you have this is this generation's Garo, this is this generation's Garo.
And then you start to get the other universes and stuff like that. And thankfully, a lot of the anime as well has also made its way out as well. We've got pretty much all 3 seasons of the anime adaptations of Garo. Carved Steel Flames, and then Vanishing Road, and also the feudal one that I always forget about because I never
Crimson
like.
Moon, yeah.
Crimson Moon, because I always forget it because I didn't like it. But all those are available through Funimation as well.
Yeah.
So this is definitely one of the more accessible. And then the last recent series was Versus Road, and I think it was also a victim of COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah. So if the idea of a new Zara movie every week is not enough of an incentive, I don't know what's wrong with you, but it does have other tie-ins to things that people might know. So if you're a video gamer, there's been a lot of collaborations with different games. Including like Final Fantasy 14, because the people that work on that are just big fans. We should mention that some of the Garo concept was riffing on Golden Bat. If you look at some of the early concept work that Amemiya was doing for Golden Bat thing, you can see how it kind of morphed into these Golden Knights.
Yeah.
And then if you are a fan of the Heisei Gamera series, and if you're not, leave.
Everybody's favorite detective is actually in it as the butler, and he's actually one of the characters who's in almost every adaptation of the main series. He's such a good guy. Let him have a good day. But I still kind of wish we had gotten that Golden Bat series from Amemiya. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
And then there we are, Maru G, or Maru Gigolo, apparently, according to the English title. And this was not so much a last hurrah. That's one of those phrases that's just sticking with me. But it's definitely one of the more recent productions, the IP productions, which is, I guess, mostly survives now as a rights holder.
Yeah.
And so Lion Maru was a series produced by IP Productions, the same company that made Space Giants, aka Ambassador Magma, also Spectre Man. It was a Tetsuya Tiger 7, Dungeons of Bogar, which was remade in Karate Robo Bogar. And so it was this big feudal show with demons and stuff like that, and a dude who can transform to a lion. And in the second season, he gets a jetpack that he transforms with, because why not? But this was an attempt to basically remix it and kind of do a reimagining, but it's very humorous. And I wonder how much of it was salvaged, or no, it probably wasn't salvaged from the, there was actually an attempt to reboot the show. So it's Samuraion, which had a concept art or character designs by, was it Nir Sawa, who was one of the creature designers for the Heisei Rider series, as well as the Amon and Apocalypse at Devilman manga. So, but yeah, it's nuts. And then you also have, what was it? I forgot Daisato did series planning over this one. And Tomo Haraguchi, who also worked in Death Kappa, also the director for Mika Droid, everyone's favorite disco horror movie. And of course, Bioplanet Wu. The show that I think, because you were saying this was the last Tsuburaya.
Yeah, it's the last Tsuburaya production that's not an Ultraman thing.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it almost was, because NHK was like, "Hey, will you make an Ultraman show for this?" And then Tsuburaya was like, "Well, we're kind of already making one for another network, but we can make something that's very similar for you."
So they took one of the original concepts for Ultraman and just ran with it, and turned out a show that has a lot of heart in it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is not really a late night show. It aired at 7:30, but it would get re-aired later at night, much like Ultraman Nexus, and it did much better when it aired later at night. So.
Yeah, not many toys for that one. Although they did a little Sofa B of the main guy. This little that little bundle of joy on the left. He's just a little guy, and I do have. He was one of my 21st birthday presents. Actually, was that.
This is one we'll just go over quickly. That people know the anime Jikoku Shoujo also had a live action version from the same time, basically, and it's been adapted a few times. But this exists.
Kawaii Jenny, yeah. Okay, so this is basically Koichi Kawakita having the time of his life. So Jenny was essentially, I guess, a Japanese answer to Barbie in some respects. But they decided, okay, so we're going to do a new show for it. But what if we went absolutely bonkers with it? And so suddenly you have the 3 girls who are being controlled by puppets and stop motion with I think it's rod puppetry. It's all mostly green screened. And you have them transforming into armor. There are giant robots. There you go. You have the evil teddy bears. You have a whole episode where like they're worrying about all the sweets in the world being abducted. All this stuff like that. It is so funny. It's a show, unfortunately, though, that I think it was mostly fan subbed, but again, you have to look for it. But it is definitely worth the trouble. I've shown clips of this on Twitch from time to time, and it's just such a fun show. See, even they like it.
Yeah, all the people that are fans of the Heisei Godzilla special effects, it's the same guy. I feel like he's having a better time doing the show than he did.
He really is having the time of his life, and it shows with all the sequences, because he does like the Akira power slide at one point. It's so good.
Yeah, this is another one, and there's a lot of fans of anime that know the Maho Sensei Negima, and it had a live action version that's kind of pretty different in terms of the way it's executed. So
the opening title sequence is at least pretty good. It's all like one big frozen frame.
Mm-hmm. Another one that has an anime that we can gloss over. We are like at time, but I think this would be a good thing to wrap up on it.
Oh yeah,
Cutie Honey the Live, now available on Blu-ray thanks to Discotech Media.
Ding, yeah, really good time. It's probably, I want to say, the darkest adaptation to date, possibly the goriest. Basically, take Panther Claw, make them into sort of like a secret, like, secret society that's like less like supernatural and more like gambling and stuff like that, and like proper crime. You have three honeys now, and it's just really fun. It's a good time. Yeah, it's also incredibly gay. It's like incredibly gay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It goes without saying. And so you also have the actor who played Kusaka from Commodore 5 is in it, as well as a villain who has 3 personalities. And it's just a really good time. Also, the show that really introduced everyone to Mark Musashi, all because of one line, which is him just swearing. Yeah, it's a good show, really. And also, Go Nagai also appears in a special episode as well. Mm-hmm. And with show composition by Toshiki Inoue, once again, our favorite person who likes to rip our hearts out. And
because this is a Godzilla convention, we have to mention Tsutomu Kitagawa, Millennium suit actor. This is his favorite role because he gets to drink a lot of beer and fight with dead fish. I think we might be out of time now.
Or 12:52. We got time.
Okay.
We can do some questions, I think.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we just have so many shows to cover. But yeah.
Oh.
What's up? Yeah. Unfortunately not.
The first couple episodes, but like I think it was like a D-Addicts thing, so those were probably lost to the ages. Yeah, some brave soul did manage to preserve it, so it's. Yeah.
It's got great effects.
Yeah, it's a good time. Definitely is a good time.
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, so we're gonna try to put what we've recorded on YouTube, and maybe we'll have a special bonus at some point to go over the rest.
Just sing the rest of them to the tune of Yakko's World, basically.
I didn't get to talk about Thunderbolt Fantasy, which is the other.
Oh, it's wrong. All you need to know, it's martial arts and puppets, and it's amazing. It's also available on Crunchyroll. Thank you for coming, everybody. Run! Any other questions? Yeah, any other questions? Or, well, in that case, thank you so much for coming, everybody. And hope you had a good time. If you like this, make a rumble about it on social media, and maybe I'll get summoned back or something. Oh, and go buy Kevin's book as well. Also, Vintage Henshin on YouTube. And wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, we literally got halfway through the slides.
Oh, God!